J Moore, the very best reviews. Tell them none can contest, we gon'
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. I'm here to talk about We Own the City, episode 3, first reaction. Another good episode for this new limited series on HBO. It's starring John Bernthal and a lot that you be familiar with by face, not so much by name. And those people are let's see, McKinley, Belcher. They got a lot of people that have been in The Wire as well. Let's see who else. That's John Bernthal, who you've seen in movies such as King Richard. He was in The Punisher, all kind of things. Wumi Mosaku, who was also in Lovecraft Country, as well as in Loki and other projects, and Daryl Britt Gibson, who played in Power as Rolla, and he also was in other projects as well. We also have Jamie Hector, who was in The Wire. So it does have a nice round of cast members, and I think they do a really good job with this show. We Own the City. We Own this city. So episode 3 is another good episode, and it's about the show. For those who aren't familiar with this show, is picking up and talking about Baltimore policing after the Freddie Gray riots. And they are talking about what happened after police started getting charged with corruption and how police started to slow down their work. Some police still continue to rob and beat people. And the city is basically starting to unravel. The mayor is at her breaking point and chose not to run for re-election. And they have an outside source who is played by, I'll just say Hippolyta, but she was in Lovecraft Country, Wumi. She, and that is her, Wumi Masaku. Nicole Steele is her character. She's doing an internal investigation on the corruption of the Baltimore Police Department. And so she's trying to do interviews and investigate to see what's going on. She doesn't really have the power to subpoena people and of that nature, but she's trying to get to the bottom of what's the truth behind the corruption. And so the show is set up in 3 different time frames. So some people may be confused at first because it's showing the present of the show, which is the investigation. And well, actually, they're showing, their present. See, even I could get a little confused, is the investigation. And then they're also showing the past, which is when these officers were being trained and working together. So, and there's different versions of the past. So one is like they'll show John Bernthal's character, Wayne Jenkins, when he was a rookie being trained. Then they'll show when he was running his own task force and how he began to be corrupted with taking money, getting overtime, making arrests, all of that. And how he then began to spread that corruption onto other officers. And so it is interesting to see how that all plays out, as well as the other time frame where we're seeing the officers have been arrested, and now they snitching on each other. Now, at this moment, we don't know how far that goes and where that leads, if they're going to be convicted, if they're going to get out or what. But the FBI is involved. And one of the things that's interesting is that the officer said at the end that, yeah, I did my job. I never hurt nobody. I never did anything to anybody. I did my job. So what if we took a little money here or there? At the end of the day, we did our job and that we didn't hurt anybody. And then she said, well, that what about this person? I forget the name. And he said, what about him? And they said, well, yeah, you took 10,000 from him. And that 10,000 was his money he owed to his supplier. And when you normally got that kind of money taken and don't come up, you come up short with it, they normally don't look the other way. And then they cut to what happened. And dude basically got gunned down. He got aired out like dirty laundry over there for that $10,000. So by default, you got him killed because you stole the money and it was nothing he could do about it. And maybe they didn't believe him when he said the police took the money. Even if they did, that ain't gonna give me my money back. And they killed him. So that definitely was messed up. And I guess he started to realize maybe a little bit of the ramifications of how much money they were stealing. But what's crazy is I was talking to a former police officer recently over the weekend, and I was talking about this show and police corruption and things. And the crazy thing is, I said, what happens when police seize all this money and turn it in? They keep it anyway, don't they? And she said, yep, it goes into the police officer's, retirement fund. So, they're going to keep it one way or the other. They want to put it in the retirement fund, and these officers was just keeping it directly. Now, maybe some of these, seizures, they shouldn't have taken the money. Just like in episode 2, they took this one guy's money. It was a little around $10,000. He said it was the equity he got from refinancing his home. And they said, well, we going to take it and you need to bring that paperwork up to the station if you want to get this money back. Well, he did bring that paperwork and he did try to get the money back, but they never turned it in, which is one of the things that started getting them caught up because they didn't turn it in. But nevertheless, these officers was keeping it directly instead of turning it in. And I mean, one way or the other, it was going to be kept by police. It's just, are all the police going to share into it, or are these officers going to take it directly at the end of the day? When officers make that drug bust and they seize 40, 50 grand, that money is never going back to that drug dealer. They're not going to burn the money. So what happens to it? That's what happens to it. It goes into the police retirement fund, retirement account. So, I mean, eventually when they retire, then they'll all benefit from it. But until that moment, they, you don't have the money. So it's definitely interesting that I guess I mean, it is wrong to seize the money, but they were going to keep it either way it goes. So I don't know. Now this episode focuses and shows a little bit about how they all work together. We learn a little bit about how Suter, who was in The Wire, that's played by Jamie Hector, Sean Suter, we learn a little bit about how he ended up getting involved in this task force corruption. And it's when he worked with Wayne Jenkins, played by John Bernthal. And when they were raiding this car wash, he was talking to the big, he was asking little Huggy Bear where the money at, and he was saying, I ain't gonna tell you nothing. You a F to the G, the derogatory terms, missing the letter A in the middle. But he really pissed him off with that. Said if I was untied, I'd beat your ass and all of that. So he started tearing up the office and all of this. And then we saw Suter finds that this table was a little different, and they end up tearing the table up, finding drugs. Well, not drugs. They found about 45, 50 grand in there. And so he was ready to take it all. John Bernthal character, Jenkins was ready to take it all. And Suter was like, nah, we can't do that, man. It's units outside, this and that, or whatever. He like, nah, what we gonna do is we gonna say it was about 4,000 in cash, and then we gonna keep the rest. That's how we gonna write it up. And he like, nah, we said, nah, that's how we gonna write it up. And sure enough, they took all that money except for like 4 grand, and they split it up between the plainclothes officers that was there. So, they each probably took about 5-10 grand off of that dude. And the way he tried to justify it is he was like, hey, look, we could have died in there. We go in there, go make this arrest. Here this dude got more money than we may make in a year. And we could have got killed, and all our family would have got was a flag folded up. So to that respect, this is what we supposed to get. This is what we deserve. So, I mean, I guess if you really want to do some things in life, you could always find a way to justify it. But in the end, does that make it right? Because you find ways to justify it, it did sound good how they justified it, but still, was it right? And cops, when they robbing drug dealers and things, they crossing the line into being criminals themselves. So, I mean, in the end, that breaks down trust within the police force, like they said in episode 2, that when that happens, nobody wants to work on the juries. No one wants to testify. No one wants to be involved with cops at all because they know they lie, they steal, and they don't want to help them because they know they full of it. So, and they showed that a little bit earlier because Suter in the present is investigating homicide, and he was checking with this old lady, and she didn't really want to help. And then when she did finally give a tip and said, this lady down the street grandson is a terror, and that's all I got to say. So eventually they end up making an arrest in that neighborhood, and she was on the porch looking, and it seemed like she was like, okay, these cops are trying to do something. But she still ain't say nothing and closed the door, went inside. So people got to live there. Like she said, I got to live here. So if you in that neighborhood every day, all day, somebody could come and try to shoot up your house, break in, kill you, any of that. So she's trying to keep it 100, make sure she stays safe and protected, because a lot of times people don't realize police are always reactionary, meaning that they always come after a crime has happened. You see, if they only come after somebody shot up the place or after somebody broke in. And I mean, there's no way for them to know it was about to happen all the time. So that's why a lot of people try to have their own protection, guns, whatever, because it may be too late. They may be coming to a homicide and it'd be too late by the time they come. You be dead. So you got to be careful out there. So yeah, they was worried. But Suter kind of got this one chick that was walking, and he got her name and where she was going. And then after he got the tip from the old lady, he figured that maybe that was the dude that she was going to see, and said he about to take her to jail if she don't give up that name, and tell him to call him on the phone and tell him to meet her right now. And so, sure enough, next thing you know, we saw that he got him. So I guess it worked, because yeah, she ain't want to go to jail for dude, especially over no murder case. That's serious case right there, murder case. So we'll see what happens and how that charge play out. But that was a serious charge, and I don't think nobody trying to get involved in no murder case. Now, we did see Jenkins also. He got a problem with drinking a little bit, but not out of control just yet. But when he did, like, all the officers, at least all the crooked officers, they hang out and know each other. And we saw another officer that was in the wire, another actor, rather, I should say, that was in the wire. Let me see, what's his name? He was also, where's his well, they was all drinking and hanging out, and then Jenkins came, and they was talking about Daniel Herschel, Josh Charles. A lot of these guys you may not recognize by name, but by face. And so when he was talking, and he a dirty cop too. And so and he was also a dirty cop in Four Brothers. He killed Terrence Howard. Anyway, we see that they was drinking some Patron, and he said, you got to put some money on this. You want to get in on this little barbecue. We, got steaks, we got drink. And then he said, man, what's this y'all drinking? What's Pat Ron? Jenkins said, Pat Ron. He ain't even know what Patron was. He said, this is y'all drinking Pat Ron. Y'all done got too fancy up in here. So that definitely was funny. But overall, they was hanging out, drinking or whatever, chilling. And we saw that once he got off later that night from hanging with them, that he went to his friend who also was a cop, but now he a bail bondsman, and he making big money. He making big money now, and he took him out to the strip club. And when he went to the strip club, boy, I see Jenkins like him some dark meat, some chocolate. Them girls was banging too, boy. He was like, ooh, I will leave my wife right now, right here for her. He said he would leave his wife for one of them strippers up in there. And Shorty came over like, yeah, what's up? Why don't you buy a bottle and come with me to the VIP? And, you could tip me, and we could have some fun. And he like, well, how much that's going to cost? So she said $200 to buy the bottle. Damn. And his boy paid for it. He like, go ahead, I got you. And so he went back there, and that strip club, boy, it was some thick meat up in there. I ain't gonna lie. And dude, he was like falling in love with a stripper. He in love with a stripper, straight up. And they had him in there dancing with the little shower going on in the strip club and all that. So I don't know, man. Jenkins, man, he might start having a stripper habit, because he definitely was in love with going with old girl. But then again, it was expensive. Now, if he was stealing from criminals just to pay for strippers, that's crazy. As of now, we don't know that. But she did ask, like, you ain't the police, are you? He like, hell no, fuck the police. So definitely don't want that to come back on him, that's what he was spending all his money on. But overall, it was a good episode. It showed a lot about what's going on with the city. I didn't realize the Freddie Gray murder or death, however you see it. I don't know a whole lot about it. I do know he ended up like paralyzed or something. And it's hard to get to be paralyzed without severe trauma. And nevertheless, the officers, that Freddie Gray trial, death, murder, had a huge impact on the city, because the officers, when she was talking to Uncle Benny from Power, he's in this and he played the head of the police union. He said that officers don't want to, because she asked, is it true about the work slowdown? And he said, well, we don't support or endorse a work slowdown, but if you want to know the truth, a lot of officers are probably not trying to risk losing their badge or their freedom because of trying to make an arrest. And we see that the city, then the laws keep changing on what's a good arrest, and they thinking in one way you can't do the job without having some physicality, and they saying that a lot of officers are deciding maybe not to make a lot of arrests because of what happened with Freddie Gray, and they feel that they could end up behind bars or whatever because all those officers ended up being charged with his murder. And so yeah, I guess it is a catch-22 with that situation, because some officers, at least some good officers, I don't know about some of the ones we seeing in this show, but some of the officers feel damned if we do, damned if we don't. If we do make these arrests and it does have to get a little physical, I could end up the one behind bars going to jail, and this person could be free or suing the city or whatever the case. And so they figure not take that risk unless it's something major, which is kind of unfortunate, because she said that the city and crime was still going, it was going up. And Freddie Gray wasn't that long ago. This is all within the last, 10 years? I can't remember what year Freddie Gray happened, but it's been less than 10 years. I know that. So definitely crazy what happened with what's going on with this city. Now, Officer Herschel, he's one of the few crooked cops that still make a lot of arrests. And so even though he gets a lot of complaints, the officers, the city and stuff, they don't really come on him because he's making a lot of arrests. And even in this episode, they did find a gun in the back of this car when they pulled over this white couple. And I mean, they do get guns off the street. And, I guess a lot of his complaints, beating up people, mistreatment of people, I guess, get overlooked a little bit because he is getting arrests made and guns off the street and things. So I don't know. It is a little difficult to say what is right and what is wrong. I mean, this show does paint a good picture of the complexity of policing. Now, these cops are choosing to steal this money, and that's a no-brainer right there. Now, again, if you believe in justifications in life, you can justify doing almost anything. And they definitely are making the case to justify taking the money. And like I said, I talked to a real officer, and they told me that money go into the police officers' retirement fund anyway. Eventually, you know, when they seize $1 million in drug money, what you think they gonna do with it? Give it back, burn it, throw it away? They keep it. So, and even when they take, a lot of you know this, when they seize property, like he said, we seized that guy's boat, all of that stuff, they sell it at police auctions and they keep the money for that. So they're going to keep that money and that property one way or the other. The real problem, I guess, is that they're taking it and keeping it themselves, and it's not going into what has been deemed the proper way to keep the money, which is just, I don't know, man. What do you guys think police should do if they seize $1 million or in drug money, for example? Should that go in police retirement? Or, I mean, what could they do with the money? Put a one, well, I don't know. I mean, should it go in police retirement? Put a 1 P if you think so. Put a 2 P if you don't. I don't know what they could do with that money. I guess you won't give the money back to the drug dealers. Maybe put that money into the community, build up resources and things in the community, maybe. But as far as the money, I don't know what they could do with that. Maybe that's probably the best thing to do, is put that money in the community, somehow help the city. Yeah, I agree, Jocelyn. Yeah, put the money somehow, some way into helping the city, helping the communities that are struggling, building, you know, libraries and after school programs and things for the youth. Maybe a college fund so that these kids can have a scholarship to go to college, high school scholarships, so they can go to high schools that their parents couldn't afford. Um, I guess it's a lot of other things they can do with the money than their retirement. Or put a little bit, 10% into their retirement, and the 90% has to go to the rest, all these other projects and things. It definitely would help repair a lot of the relationships in the cities that are hit hardest by drugs and crime. Because they definitely don't put back into the community when they seize that money. And that's just as bad as the drug dealers, I guess, taking all that money out of the community, and they don't put back into it either. So I guess they just as bad in that sense with the money. Um, Definitely they should spread it around. And you say they could give to the schools, housing, roads, more teachers, all of that. That's a good point. Definitely a good point. again, this was another good, solid episode. Let me go ahead and give it a Mosco. And I'm going to keep this first reaction kind of short. And I'll be back to talk about it a little bit more in detail another time. But for now, let me give it a rating on this episode. All right, everybody, the Mosco, 4 separate categories, 25 points each category, give you a top score of 100. And if you want to round it down to get a score of 1 to 10, you can simply take down the decimal point, and I always give a 0.5 margin of discretion in either direction. All right, so visual cinematography, they use top-notch modern cameras. They are all over the city of Baltimore, neighborhoods and different locations, the strip club, all of that stuff. And I think they do a good job with the way that they film this show, how close up they get to the actors, the situations. It almost feels like a documentary in a way, but it's not filmed like a documentary. It does look like a TV show. So with that being said, I would give it a score of a 20 with the visuals and cinematography. The storyline and plot is definitely interesting. I enjoy this show. The plot is very interesting, seeing what's going on with these officers and the struggle that they got to go through dealing with how to police the city and crime, and the support that they have and the support they don't have, the conflict of interest that they had with taking the money. And we see how Jenkins kind of put Suter in the catch-22 about taking the money, because if he didn't take the money, then he could have been deemed untrustworthy. Who knows what could have happened out there in them streets if he needed backup. Overall, I like this episode, and I would give it a 20. Special effects, makeup, costumes, it's no real special effects. They did show one guy get shot and killed, but overall, nothing too outrageous. The costumes is just regular current clothing that they wear. All the officers and stuff and things. I mean, it's okay, nothing to write home about. But it's all believable. I would give it a 15 though, for this episode. And entertainment fun factor, I really enjoyed this episode. It was very entertaining, and it was a little bit more than a regular 20, but it wasn't a 25. And so for that, I'll give it a 22, which gives it a total Mosco of 77. All right, a 77 for this episode. Let me type it in. So, again, if somebody said it was an 80 or 85 or 8.5 or 8, I could definitely see that. If you want to round it up, the 77 to an 8, I could see that. I mean, the score is only that low because of no special effects, really. It's not a real special effects driven show, and they don't have a lot of people maybe getting shot every episode and things. But overall, it's an excellent show, very well written, very interesting, very realistic, and it's based off of true events. So of course they always have to take a creative license with all of that stuff, but overall, I think they're doing a good job portraying the struggle police were having with policing, with themselves and corruption, and working in a difficult city to work in. Now, I think that, and we saw this in the second episode when the officer was saying the only way they could really make more money is with overtime or with filling up the docket. Even if the cases don't stick, it's still they doing it just so that they can make money. And that creates a bad way of policing. They found weed on one person, but they took them all in, all three people, because doing paperwork and doing all that other stuff gets overtime because it's going to take them more time to get it done. And he said they're not going to justify overtime for responding to 911 calls, which that's what they should be giving you overtime for, because you actually working. People are asking for help. 911, they're asking you for help, but they won't pay you overtime for that. But they'll pay you overtime for bringing in people, even though the cases don't stick. That's backwards to me. I would rather pay you for 911 calls, because that way I know you really were working, because you can't fake a 911 call. You can't just fill up a sheet full of 911 calls, because that takes some random person calling 911, and then you didn't know that was about to happen. It was nothing you could have did about that other than respond. And so that's definitely more justifiable to me for them to have to respond to that and get paid overtime helping people that are actually calling for help, than putting it in your hands and you just grabbing people off the street for any old kind of reasons, just so you could be sitting in the station doing paperwork all night. What? That's crazy. So I don't know. Miss Jocelyn, you say some police get theirs off the top before turning it in. If they find $1 million, they turn it in 899,000. That's true. And we saw that in this episode when Jenkins said we only found a 4,000 when they actually found like 40,000. And he said to Suter, we gonna say we found these drugs and guns or whatever, and about 4,000 in cash. That's how we gonna write it up. When truth is, they found more than that. And what you said in this comment is exactly what they did in this episode. And a lot of people have experience with cops doing that, or have heard of cops doing that. And it seems that it's the same story in all kind of cities across America. And I don't know how it could be fixed, because you could always say pay the cops more. But again, people will justify almost anything. So the average cop, after at least a couple years, is making around 50 grand a year already. That ain't chump change. Now, are you rich making 50 grand a year? Of course not. But they do get increases in things. And after about maybe, I don't know, 5 years or more, they may be making between 50 and 75, depending on the city and promotions and things. So, I mean, eventually cops get paid pretty good. And if you've been on the force 10 years or more, I think they may even start to be at around 6 figures. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But it's definitely not the highest paying job, but it's not one of the lowest. This is similar to The Wire as far as dealing with the police and and corruption, and it's in Baltimore. But this is more focused on the police, whereas The Wire had the criminals as well, and they were focusing on them. Whereas this is not so much focused on any criminal in particular. This is a police focused show, and the bad guys are the police, and they're focusing on how they're trying to clean the city up and police the police. So it's not exactly like The Wire at all, but it does have a few similarities, you know. But I wouldn't say it's the same show, you know. Savannah, you say I wouldn't want to take money like that. That's what a lot of cops probably say and probably feel that way. And after working and having people shoot at you and do different things, you then start to have a different view. You got to keep in mind, as a cop, every day you're seeing a lot of the worst that people have to offer. People aren't calling 911 because they having a good day. So you start to see a different aspect of things. You then start to justify some things. And that's just really kind of unfortunate that people then start to get worn down on maybe some of their beliefs. That's a good question. So Jocelyn asked, would I be a policeman? When I was younger, I'd say up until maybe age 23, no, probably about 25, 26. I would have said hell to the no. Never in a million years, not even close, would I be a cop. I would be one of those cops, I couldn't even have been a cop. I couldn't even imagined it. When I was around 30 to 32, I thought about it. But I was thinking like, man, I would be letting so many people get off with a lot of petty stuff that I don't know how. I thought about corruption and things too. And then I also had thought about it honestly with myself. If I had pulled over a drug dealer and they had like 20 grand or 10 grand, I might take the money and let them go. I might have took money too. I actually thought of these situations. I'm being honest. I was like, I'll take their money and I'll probably let them go. Or I could take you to jail and, you still going to lose the money. Which one is it going to be? So I thought about it and I decided I don't want to get into that. I don't want to be chasing people down, shooting people. I definitely don't want to see the worst that people have to offer every day. That's why a lot of cops drink a lot, because it can wear you down. And I don't want to see the worst people have to offer all the time. So I was thinking of, because they were hiring in my city, I was thinking of, stable employment for my son, different things. But then at the same time, because that's what made me think about it, is that they kept on trying to hire a bunch of new cops around that time period. And I think they were starting salary at like 50 grand at that time. And I was like, okay, that ain't too bad. And I was like, I could go ahead and rob some drug dealers. But I'm like, all seriousness, nah, I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to be that type of person. Uh, I don't want to live that type of life. And also, it is a dangerous job, although it's not one of the most dangerous jobs you can have. But it's not for me. It's not for me. So no, I would not be a police officer. But when I was around 30 to 32, I actually started to honestly consider it, and I decided against it. So You know, Savannah say cops beat up my cousin and took his money. I know, right? That does happen. You could work the desk. You don't always get those type of posts though. Normally, if they hiring you straight out the academy, you gonna work the beat. And also, policing here is a little different because every cop is by themselves here. Not that I would be scared to be by myself, but I would have rather had a partner too. In Chicago, every time you see a police car, it's two cops in there. They ride with partners. I guess this is a lot different though. You can't be by yourself in Chicago all the time. You got a partner with you everywhere you go. Whereas here, every cop is by themselves. You see three police cars pulled over, that's just three cops. Where in Chicago, that would have been six cops right there. So I don't know. Jocelyn, you say Chicago PD is always hiring and you get to work with that cute Mayor Lightfoot. OMG. I don't know about, she don't like men no way. Lightfoot is a lesbian, I believe, or what do they call it? Queer. So she wouldn't want me. But Chicago police, woo-wee. The officer I was talking to about what happens when they seize money was a Chicago police officer. And I'm telling you, it's a lot that goes on at being a Chicago police officer. And I doubt I could be a Chicago police officer. That is something else. I don't think I could have did that. No. And any city in America, I think it's probably difficult to be a Chicago police officer. I mean, a police officer to a certain extent. I mean, you're dealing with the worst that people got to offer every day, and that'll wear down your spirit. You know, wear down your soul. You seeing people dead, dealing with grief. I mean, she's told me some stories about finding dead babies and all kind of stuff, and drug addicts and kid. That I just don't want that type of stuff on my soul, on my spirit. Because when you see certain things, you can't forget it. When you know certain things, you can't unknow it. And I just don't want to be that person with all of those images and memories in my head. And I'm glad that I knew about this and had these as pros and cons to go back and forth with in my head when I was thinking for a brief moment about being a cop. And again, it was only for a brief moment because they were advertising and saying they are hiring a lot of new officers at the time period. And now this is over 10 years ago now. But they were trying to hire all these officers and everything. So it made me consider it because of that. And I thought about it, but all money is not good money. And, you know, I decided not to go for that. I didn't want that on my heart. And also, I didn't want to be taking money from drug dealers, even though, like I said, a person can justify anything. I know people that have justified drinking when they know they shouldn't. I know people justified using drugs, shooting people, all kind of things. So a person can find a way to justify anything. That doesn't mean that they right, but it's a way for them to make their mind and make them feel better about their actions. And I didn't want to justify being a thief. So I'm good. You say try working in the hospital like me. I did work in the group homes and things like that for a while, and that was a hell of an experience. But hospital is another thing that can wear you down, seeing people sick or dying and grief. Yeah, you do get to help people and see people recover as well, but hospital can wear you down too. Um, so, and then you see people needing help, and then they don't get the help they need because of insurance or different reasons and all kind of things. And you know, some of these systems that we have in America is very hard on your spirit. And so I would rather make people laugh and bring joy than be a part of the sadness that's in this world. Now, somebody got to do the jobs. And if you choose to be a cop or work in the hospital or all of those things, more power to you. Somebody got to do it. And I want police, actually, because I don't want to have to live in the Wild West where we got to all have shootouts and solve our own crimes and worry about, getting shot to get some gas or something. Although it may happen anyway, you definitely get robbed every time you go get some gas. But I do think that we should have police, fire departments, all of that stuff, ambulance, and hospitals. I just think it's just that it needs some reform and updates in how we do it. Um, that's what I think. So, Savannah, you say it's dangerous being a comedian. Also, look at Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock. That's true, but that's two incidents recently and not the same as being a cop and all that. But I get what you're saying. That's funny. Um, and speaking of Dave Chappelle, and I got this story coming out on my podcast that Netflix is not going to air on Dave Chappelle's set where he got tackled like he was a tackling dummy like Bobby Boucher. He got tackled by Bobby Boucher. They ain't gonna air that. And I think they should, but they're not. So we'll see what happens. I'll talk about that later on my podcast. So I will share it on YouTube, but definitely subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and Spotify. I definitely need your support and appreciate it. All right. I'm about to get up out of here, y'all. I appreciate y'all for coming through. I know this is a new show and a lot of people haven't seen it yet, but I do recommend watching this show. It's a 6-episode limited series. Who knows? They may bring it back for a second season if more people watch it. But as of now, it's only been 3 episodes. You can catch up in no time. And it's called We Own This City. It's on HBO. Check it out. Watch it. It is very good. And I recommend it. And every episode has been good. A lot of people giving it about a 7.6 overall on IMDb. I would give it an 8 as of a series. And every episode has been damn near an 8 or a 7.5. So we'll see. You say no raffle. No, it ain't no raffle today. It's only been a handful of people that showed up. So, I mean, I'm not going to do a raffle when it's not that many people that showed up live. Uh, that's something that I do when people show up, and it's like a reward for the people, try to give back for those that come through. I do appreciate everybody that came. It is important to always, share and, hit the like and all of that stuff so we can get more people to show up. But no raffle today. I did have a raffle. I gave away 3 raffles yesterday. I did 3 raffles yesterday. So yeah, you gotta be here. You never know. I did 3 yesterday for Mother's Day. So, no, not one today. But who knows? I might give tomorrow. It all depends on how many people watching and how many people you know, put in. We only got 8 people that put in hashtag JAYMOOREREVIEWS. So, I mean, I can't do a raffle with less than 10 people. I mean, that ain't even a raffle. I might as well just give it to one of these people. You know, it's only eight people. So, and I think Vic put it in 3 times himself. So between him, I think it's only like what, 4 people? We only got 4 people that entered into hashtag JAYMOOREREVIEWS. You know, so it ain't no point in doing it with just 4 people. Got to get more people to participate, and we got to get more viewers. So let's go. Hopefully get more people to support, participate. Tomorrow I will be back with another Real Talk Tuesday. Got a lot of great topics to talk about. And make sure y'all here at 10 o'clock for that. Everybody have a good night. And I'm up out of here. Peace. Be safe. Hope everybody, all the ladies, had a good Mother's Day. And I'm out of here.
It's J Moore, the very best reviews. Tell them none can contest, we gon'